Welcome everyone. Pleasure to be here for attending this workshop. I introduce myself. My name is Marco Piras. I'm the director of the Master in Climate Change, Mitigation and Adaptation Solution. So it's a real pleasure that also today, this year, we have organized this intensive public seminar today and tomorrow. So then I invite also you for participate tomorrow morning. We have another meeting tomorrow morning dedicated about the climate change and communication. So we have the time for talking about climate change communication for individual challenge and corporate goals and perspective. Sorry, and today we talk about the aspect related to the role of the journalist and the journalism and real critical aspects related to the eco-anxiety. So what happens in the young generation, but not only related to the effect and the critical points related to the climate change. So today we spend our time talking with experts and first of all, I say thank you very much for all the speakers that will be here today for sharing with us their experience. And before to leave the floor to my colleagues, Marco Merola, I would like just to say, so this week is a very special week because the last Monday, the COP29 has started, then is a very important conference about climate change. So many subjects, many aspects have been talked the last week, and also today the G20 starts, then it's a crucial point for the climate change because so we have to discuss about the finance, but not only. So the aspect about the climate change is also how to change the mentality, how to invest in technology and innovation for tackle climate change. We have to consider a very critical point. So in the Paris agreement, so we have a fixed warning about the temperature, 1.5 degrees. So maybe we are going to complete this year, 2024. Maybe we reach the temperature about the difference of the temperature about 1.24. Then we have overpassed the warning threshold. So then maybe we have to start from this value, this data, just to think about how to change our direction. So it's not more time. We don't have more time for thinking, but we have to be very, very practical. We have to apply in the practical point of view some action. So that's this is what I want to leave with you, what I want to share with you. So today we talk about these aspects. Tomorrow we talk about the communication and corporate level. What is the role of the corporate for sharing the aspect related to the activities, the research in climate change aspect and innovation. And so then I invite you also to be here tomorrow morning for that. Before we leave the floor, a special thanks to the colleagues from the Politecnico, especially Elisa, Sofia, Camilla, who helped me in this organization. A special thanks to Marco Merola, who helped me for organize these 2 days, and a special thanks for all the speakers that are, and of course, a special thanks to you that you are here to attend this workshop. Okay, that's all. I leave the floor to Marco for introducing the workshop. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you, Marco. Hello, everyone. I'm very thrilled and honored to be here with you today. We will be having a very dense program. Let's say we will have also a very parterre au gloire because we have prominent speakers all along the day in the 2 sessions before and after the coffee break. I will call them one by one and I will present and I will introduce them one by one. But before that, since I'm also the leader of the module of reporting and communication within the Master in Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation Solution, I want to share you some ideas, and I prepared a very quick presentation before the speakers will give their own. Okay, so this man, before that, what is leading me in my profession right now are three keywords, let's say, or maybe three concepts. Understanding, perception, fear. I think these are the three pillars, three challenging pillars we have to face with, like, as journalists and communicators when we speak about climate crisis issues. So, in my work, I encountered this man who is a social psychologist, American social psychologist. His name is Daniel Pilber. He stated that due to the human evolution, we humans are prepared to respond through four kinds of threats. Those threats must be personal, abrupt, immoral, now. So the acronym is PAIN. Of course, it became clear to me that climate crisis doesn't fit with any of these triggers. So that was really interesting to me. And I would like also to show you this sketch. This was made by New Trend. I don't know if you know New Trend, but I would suggest you to follow New Trend because they give really a lot of interesting information. Because when I talk to the public, I made a lot of public talks all along the year, let's say 30 or 40 or more, in festivals, in public squares, everywhere. So what really is really well understood by the people is the difference between 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees. If you talk to normal people outside from the university and you ask them what is the difference if the temperature will rise by 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees, what's going on? I'm quite sure they really don't understand what is the difference. They really cannot catch it. This is another challenge for us communicators. This is a book I read a few months ago. It was really inspiring for me. The name of the book, the title is Retrotopia. You know what retrotopia is? Maybe I'm a very fan of, climate, science and maybe science fictions and so on. So I'm really fan of dystopic products, dystopic films, movies, and so on. But I didn't know anything about retrotopy. What is retrotopy? So Zygmunt Bauman, who is a renowned philosopher and writer, made this book to explain us what retrotopy is. Retrotopy is a sort of, it's when someone wants to go back to the past and finds his or her comfort zone by living in the past and not in the present. So another big challenge for us is to explain to the people that we cannot reach the same situation we had a few years ago. Possibly, scientists told us that 2024 is going to be the warmest year we are ever experiencing on planet Earth, since we can, of course, make measurements of the temperature of the planet. But if we will cut any greenhouse gases, if really can reduce CO2 and other greenhouse gases, if we possibly reach famous net zero condition, in any of these cases, we could go back to the past. But the people really don't understand this. It's very strange, but it's real. So, another idea I want to share with you comes from this article of Washington Post that I read 1 year ago. It was published on March 2023. So the title is really clear. Why climate doomers are replacing climate deniers. A few days ago, I participated to a debate with some other colleagues, journalists, communicators, but also politicians. And all of them seem to be really scared by the new tsunami, the new wave of deniers that we have in Italy, but also abroad. Think of, America, for instance, or maybe other areas of the world. I'm really not so scared about deniers. I'm mostly scared about doomers. Doomers are the people that cannot believe that we can really change the things. That we can really win our battle against the big changes we are experiencing right now. But we should say then, we are still in the game. This is my claim. We are still in the game. So that's why I began to study also some, papers made by psychologists. That's why today we are talking about this topic. Because I wondered that trying to find a sort of good hybridation between psychology, eco-psychology, and communication would be really good if we want to be really effective in communicating with people. Because I really don't know who is my public right now. I don't know. I'm a journalist since 32 years. I was convinced that I knew my public. But today I'm not quite sure of it. I don't know my public, especially the youngest public. I mean the famous Gen Z. So it's important to know that we are making some errors in communication. We can help psychologists in communicating in their own patients, but possibly psychologists could help us in communicating in the right way with the people, with our audiences, with our public. Because sometimes we journalists and we communicators, when we tell the truth is refused by the people if we give out it as it is. We have seen it during the COVID era. There was a moment, specific moment, in which most part of the people didn't want to hear anything else about COVID. They started refusing everything, every information. So American colleagues, American journalists, call this phenomenon news avoidance. So we have to avoid news avoidance. We have to change our paradigm. We have to shift our paradigm onto a new kind of communication that could be more closer to the people, clear, closer, but possibly enhancing hope into the people. Not only informing about, the dark scenarios that are just in front of us. I think all of us know how the situation is critical right now. But we have to change something in our way to communicate. Another inspiration comes me from this writer and from the director of the Center for Environment, Community and Equity and professor in the School of International Service at American University. Her name is Dana Fisher. She invented this this name for her. She said she's an apocalyptic optimist. So it was really interesting to me. What is an apocalyptic optimist? So, and I tried to, understand what was exactly the meaning of this. Okay, just a few minutes more. This is what I call the glossario dell'assurdo. So some absurd, really absurd words we use, but not me, I think, not Nicholas or other journalists present today, but I really hate it. So, have you ever heard about the bomba d'acqua? Yeah, when we have when we have heavy rains, but you will not find in any scientific paper all over the world this name water bomb, as well as maltempo killer, as well as fighting climate change. How can we fight climate change? We are humans. We have nature outside. We cannot fight climate change. That's why I put in the title of today's seminar, embrace climate change. This is the right way for me. I will explain in a while why I chose this word. So we know we are in the Anthropocene, but the people really don't know what Anthropocene is. So I just picked up some information about Anthropocene to explain to the people, but also to the school students, because everyone knows about Anthropocene. I've heard about Anthropocene, but no one knows exactly what Anthropocene is. So I just put some information. In the last 2 centuries, we have introduced into nature more than 200 minerals never existing before. This is Anthropocene. We have spread it out carbon particles and plastic particles all over the world, from the very top of Everest mountain onto the Mariana Trenches. It means from 8,000 meters onto 12,000 meters under the sea surface in a possible column of 20,000 meters is present the human being, our traces, our footprint. So this is Anthropocene. If you can explain this to the people, like I've explained to you now, maybe you will be really effective in communicating how critical is the situation. So I'm going to the end of my presentation. Just two little things that I'd love to share with you. This is an image that was shot in Bologna during the last flood in October 2024, so last month. The colleague that told me, I was in contact with her because I asked her if she needed some help from me. She said, every day of my life I talk about the impacts of climate crisis on people's life. But when you touch it with your hand and your house gets stuck in the mud, well, that's a completely different story. Who said that was Marirosa Iannelli. She was a friend of mine and a prominent colleague. She's from the climate and advocacy. She's a climate and advocacy coordinator with Climate Network. So it was really astonishing because she was right. She was right. It's different if climate crisis come into your house. Also for us that used to communicate about these issues every day of our life. Just the last two slides. This is a WhatsApp chat. I've exchanged with one of my sons last summer. He was with his grandparents at the sea, on the Adriatic Sea. And I asked him, did you go to the sea today? And he answered, maybe in the afternoon. But the sea is really warm. Unfortunately, the sea is really warm. He was very sad. And he very sad for all along the day. And every time we have been at the sea in the days after, he said, Daddy, do you think the sea is really working right now? Or maybe we can swim? I don't know if it's a sort of little eco-anxiety. Possibly our eco-psychologist will explain to us, but it was really strange for me to see this. So, last slide, just to tell you who I am. I told you I'm in the master, but I'm also a science journalist. I'm specialized in climate change adaptation, and this is the flag image of the webdoc Adaptation.it. which is the journalism product that I set up, that I built up along with some other colleagues a few years ago in 2017, when we had the idea that we should have changed our way to communicate to the people and possibly focusing on other topics, as I said you in the very beginning of my presentation, and possibly tell to the people that we could adapt, that we have all the technologies available for this. It's very important if we want to enhance the hope in the people. I tell all the time we could use the 3S, sharing, solutions, and survive. This is my mantra. It is my mantra nowadays. Okay, so I will stop. Okay, now I want to call the first speaker of the session. I asked to Camilla Gamba if she wants to join us. Camilla is a psychologist and psychotherapist specialized in transcultural psychotherapy with roots in California, where she completed compulsory schooling before moving to Milan to begin her studies in psychology. Over the years, her interest has expanded to eco-psychology and climate psychology. She's a member of the Climate Psychology Alliance and has furthered her training on the topic under the guidance of Professor Thomas Doherty, recognized by the APA as an expert in clinical psychology and climate change. The floor is yours.
And yeah, this is working. I don't have a lot of practice speaking with microphone, so. And also, I'm just going to take a moment to check this. Okay. So, yeah, as Marco said, my name is Camilla Gamba. I am a psychotherapist. I normally do this kind of work around eco-psychology and climate psychology with my colleague, Camilla Gamba. Anyway, I collaborate on this with my colleague, Camilla, who's also a member of the Climate Psychology Alliance, and she's a researcher at the University of Bologna. So a lot of the slides with information around research comes from her support. Marco asked me today to actually cover really big topics, so I'll do my best to kind of give a summary, but they can be very broad. So we've tried our best to insert some information around resources. So if there's anything that you're curious to explore further, please go ahead and do so. So I'm going to try to answer the question as per Marco's request. What is eco-psychology? What is eco-anxiety? And what do we know about effective climate communication? And I point in that direction. Okay, so a few words around the birth of eco-psychology as a subject. It was born in California, Northern California, which is where I'm from traditionally, my mother's side of the family. So as we know, in the 1960s, there was a lot going on. There was a civil rights activism movement. Rachel Carson's book came out, Silent Spring. If you don't know it, it was kind of a surprisingly a bestseller around the effects of pesticide and pollution of the soil and water. And so that created kind of a strong shape in the environmental movement. It was the atomic era with the nuclear threats. And in 1970 was the first Earth Day. If you know what that is, it's kind of a big deal in terms of the being a milestone for the environmental movement. And in general, it was a period of academic interest in the intersections between psychology and ecology. In fact, Robert Greenway is considered the founding father of eco-psychology. He started teaching courses in California. He called them psychoecology courses, but that term created some confusion. So in the 1990s, a group of his students in Berkeley, they kind of worked together to have these discussion groups to bridge the gap between psychology and ecology. And Theodore Roszak published a book from this group, where he popularized the term eco-psychology. So this is a book that I would recommend if anybody's interested. And another one that came out a few years later, which is considered one of the seminal texts of eco-psychology. It's a collection of different essays that kind of tackles the subjects from different points of view, from the more psychological side to the more ecological side. So this is a very kind of broad panoramic view of eco-psychology. Just a couple of definitions. Robert Greenway defines eco-psychology as a search for language to describe the human-nature relationship. It is a tool for better understanding the relationship and for suggesting paths to healing. Theodore Roszak talks about the fact that other therapies seek to heal the alienation between person and person, person and family, person and society. Eco-psychology wants to heal the more fundamental alienation between the person and the natural environment. So if we think about where we are today, talking about climate change and the human condition, you can kind of understand that this can be interesting for us to consider. Today, eco-psychology has a lot of different branches, but to just kind of sum up the more important ones and maybe the more interesting ones for today's talk, eco-psychology studies how contact with different types of natural and non-natural environments affect the mind. Just to give an example, what's it like to have this this presentation here, this kind of artificial space? What would it be like for us to have it outdoors? So we study that. We also talk about ecotherapy. So if I have a patient who is dealing with anxiety or depression, how might I use nature and connect to nature as a form of treatment? We also study the psychological, social, and cultural reasons and the impacts of ecologically unsustainable behaviors. All right, so why do we keep driving cars if we know that cars are bad for the environment? And trying to figure that one out. And then also the cognitive, emotional, behavioral, existential impacts of ecological and climate phenomena, which is then a subcategory of eco-psychology, which is climate psychology, okay, which is maybe more what we're going to be talking about today. Super brief overview. So then, these are two resources. They're two platforms. They're kind of aggregate of psychologists around the world who are interested in these subjects. So you can look both of these up. The orange one, Climate Psychology Alliance, is mostly European based, and then we have the Climate Psychology Alliance North America. Lots of resources. There's also a lot of other organizations that are trying to put a lot of materials out there also for people who are communicators or journalists. Okay, other difficult one. What is eco-anxiety? Eco-anxiety is possibly a very useful term collectively to kind of get a point across of how we're feeling. It is not a diagnosis. What this means is we have not gone as a clinical group that we have not had all the research done yet to decide whether it's an illness or not, right? So we can't really diagnose it. It's kind of like saying I have a stomach ache. It doesn't make the stomach ache less real to say it's not a diagnosis, but a doctor couldn't diagnose someone with eco-anxiety. Okay, this is really important for where I'm sitting, so for psychologists. And maybe it's also important for journalists and communicators who are using this word. When do I use it? When do I not use it? We don't really know yet. So I'm going to offer you some of the definitions that researchers and clinical psychologists are offering. The first one is by the APA. The APA is the American Psychiatric Society. It is one of the more important institutions for clinical psychologists to go through. They're kind of the ones who would start to help us decide, do we diagnose it or not, and all the criteria around that. But for the moment, this is actually a 2017 definition, which is very interesting because it's been a few years now. They say the chronic fear of an environmental doom stemming from the observation of climate change's seemingly irreversible effects and they worry about one's own future as well as the future of the next generation. One example of a definition, another one from Clayton, who is another clinical psychologist who does a lot of work in this sector. They say it's an affective, meaning with emotions. It's a response to environmental circumstances resembling a stress or anxiety reaction that can be felt irrespective of direct experience of climate change. So whether you've experienced a flood or whether you've just seen it on the news, you may still experience eco-anxiety. It is accompanied by a process of cognitive appraisal, gaining judgment on how dangerous climate change is, repetitive thoughts, and coping regulation efforts with the goal of reducing the unpleasantness experience. This is kind of technical, but we'll come back to what this means. And then climate anxiety can also be characterized as a crisis of hope about the future that can include existential doubts and feelings of dread, leading to a reduction in quality of life by impairing functioning in different contexts. This is also important for us to understand if somebody is very anxious about something, they might have trouble sleeping, they might not be able to concentrate in school, they might have issues with their relationships and so on. And just a note, at the moment, I might just say that eco-anxiety and climate anxiety tend to be used interchangeably, although there are some nuances and nuance differences, but for now, I would just say that they're very, very similar. Whether or not eco-anxiety should become a diagnosis, there's pros and cons. Okay. This is an example of one way of thinking around the scientific community. They say if we label eco-anxiety as an illness, climate denialists have gone. What this means is that if we say there's an epidemic of eco-anxiety in children and we offer a lot of therapy to the children, well, what are we going to do about the sources of the eco-anxiety? Oh yeah. So offering them medication to kind of soothe and calm down. Exactly. Okay, so this is one point to consider, and then at the same time, there's the idea that well, if children, young people, adults are experiencing anxiety, then they should definitely be offered support for that. So maybe if we were able to create a diagnosis, they would have greater access. In fact, once something is turned into a diagnosis, then that means that there's extra funding, that public health starts to become really interested in it, people have training. For example, in the US, a therapist might be able to be covered in terms of insurance that they can write in their forms that the person suffers from eco-anxiety. Legal action is important. So if we wanted to do like a class action against the government or against the company, and we can actually diagnose that 30% of the people living in this community suffer from eco-anxiety, that can be very useful. At the same time, we want to make sure that we don't turn something that's actually a healthy response to a real problem into something medicalized. Okay, so we want to make sure that we don't lose the focus of the bigger picture, what's creating the anxiety to begin with. 2 minutes. Oh goodness. Okay. So the idea is to just watch the space because there's lots to still to be discussed. Because I have 2 minutes, I'm just going to show you this. These are some other words that can be used. Actually kind of increase our vocabulary so we don't just go on only anxiety. There's all of these. Climate distress is maybe one of the more desirable ones because it's more broad, less medical. And then this is another very useful resource if you go on the Climate Mental Health Network, Climate Wheel of Emotions. We don't just feel anxiety, we feel grief, we feel loss, we feel anger, right? We feel a lot of different emotions. We feel hope, gratitude. And then to answer the question, how do we talk about climate change? Like, what is the right way to communicate? I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. I think there's an underlying question of how do we get people to change their behavior? Right.
I will possibly ask you this during our roundtable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. Then I'm gonna skip ahead because there's a lot of things. But I'm just gonna end on this. So this is kind of what psychologists are trying to create in terms of very, very complicated models around, and I do urge you, if anyone's interested, to look this up. Camilla does a lot of work on eco-anxiety, ecological grief. If you just kind of imagine this as a process, it's kind of like what you were saying, Monica. We don't know who we're talking to. We don't know if they are aware of the problem or not. We don't know if they're scared and panicking and need some hope. We don't know if they're confused. We don't know if they just need a break because they've just been doom scrolling for the last 24 hours. So we're dealing with. Okay. Can I just say one last thing, Monica?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead. The other thing is also, let's not forget that as communicators or just as human beings, we also have emotions around climate change, and we might also have difficult emotions. So sometimes we can just check in with ourselves and each other and say, how are you doing? Because it's all going pretty different.
Very much. So the next speaker, now let's dive deep into mass communication, let's say, I mean, via social networks. So I call Lorenzo Colombo, please join us at the table. Lorenzo Colombo is an Italian astrophysicist and science together with Matteo Miluzio, astronomer and researcher for the Euclid Space Telescope. He's an administrator of the project Paura del Buio. The project is active on several social media platforms and participates in many activities with the public, from festivals to shows and so on. Paura del Buio covers many topics, from astronomy and astrophysics to climatology, geology, and issues in science communication. And this has resulted also in the publication of 4 books. So, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marco, and thank you, everybody here for attending, and of course, thanks to the Politecnico for organizing this kind of event, meeting, and discussion, because we do need to have a discussion about climate change and what this brings into our life. We can talk about the direct effect on our lives. I mean, by that I mean economic, not technical, but as Dr. Camilla Gamba has underlined, we have also a problem, thing that we have to manage about our emotions and our distress. I want to point out one of the last things that were in Camilla's slides. Humans are not rational. We have to take this, take it home, and make it like our little temple around it, because humans are not rational. Humans are humans. We are trying to be rational when we, try to get up on the cross, when we try to do science, when we apply scientific method and things like that. But when we communicate, we are not rational, because we elaborate on social clues, on movements, on words, choice of words. And that brings me to what Marco was saying in his beginning remarks about the use of the right words to describe the right phenomenon. I do not have any slides, because I'm lazy, no. It's just that I thought I could take my point across better if I just talk one-on-one to you without writing what I want to say on my back. Because what we do in Paura del Buio is, I think it's very difficult, it's very rewarding, we love the job. We started by talking about astronomy, physics, and geology, and volcanology, and things like that. But when you talk about astronomy, you talk about the sun. And you talk about the sun, you talk about the main climate driver of our planet. Because without the sun, we are nothing else. And this automatically gets you into the science of the planet deniers, because then I will elaborate more on that word that you used. Because one of the main arguments is that scientists don't look enough into the sun's role in what's happening to the climate of the planet. If we only look deeper into what the sun is doing, we would see that humans have no responsibility whatsoever. This is, of course, a lie. I cannot put it in other way because climate model begins in the first line with assessment of the sun energy. So you cannot ignore that. Then we have a huge conversation about what denial means, what is, if we have to use this word or not, because I was talking with Mark in our first encounter, using this word automatically erects a wall, a communication wall. You're a denier. And so there is no more communication. We are banging each other's heads against a rubber wall of that. Regarding the glossary that Marco was referring to, yeah, that is very important. As communicators, you have to be aware of what the meaning of the words you're using is and the context in which these words must be used. And journalists are communicators, whether they like it or not. And they have to stand by the unwritten rules of science communication if they are trying to do science communication. And by that, I mean by specifically using some words like bomba, the water bomb, which does not exist in the scientific vocabulary. They are introducing something into the conversation, the mind of the public, which itself kind of remembers things associated with destruction. Bomb. We have an Italian word for that. It's called nubifragio, which even comes from Latin, nubifragio, the cloud that breaks, cloudburst. Oh God. We have it in English also, without taking out bombs and things like that. And this actually brings me to my professional curriculum. Say that because after I graduated in physics, I performed 3 years of research in astronomy. I found out I really love about science. My love for the subject and buio grew more and more. 30 years I will be doing that, 12 years. And I forgot what I was trying to get across.
More communication issues.
That could have been, yes, I remember. I attended 1 year Master in Business Communication at the CHPDB, and there was a seminar in this year or so that I attended the school. During 2019, 2020, anybody remembers what happened in spring? Something related to something like that. We talked about the dialectics of communication and the war dialectics. Because we find it, the seminar was in medicine, because we were talking about COVID. So, like cancer, the C word, the word that nobody has to utter into public media. Oh, he died of a bad illness, a long illness, cancer, tumor, call it that way. But immediately after that comes the war rhetoric. You have to fight cancer. Cancer is an enemy. Or when they discover some new drug or treatment for cancer, you would sometimes find a headline that says the ultimate weapon against COVID. Why do we use this war dialectic into communication? Because that gets to your emotions, your deepest emotions: fear, anger, anxiety, hope for some also aspects of that. And we see that also in climate. We are fighting climate change. The weather bomb, bombs, again, using lexicon directly from war and aggression and contrast. And I do not think that is the right way. This is my personal opinion, of course. Like talking about climate change, you always have to have clear in your head. And that brings again to the first remarks, Marco. What is your problem? Who are you talking to? What is the recipient intended for your message? I mean, we are a Facebook page, we're born on Facebook, we extend in other social media, which is Instagram, YouTube, Twitter X, nobody knows what is that anymore, TikTok, and things like that. And by changing platforms, we had to adapt our communication to that platform. Because every platform is attended on different demographics. This is another lesson that I brought home from my studies at the CISA. The people doesn't exist. When we say in Italian, we have to speak to the gente, la gente, the people. That doesn't absolutely exist because there is no unbounded, cloudy mixture of human flesh and feelings that you're talking to, that you have to educate. No, that doesn't exist. There exists old, retired people of a certain demographics. There are young people that attend the university and come from a rich background, and those that come from a poor background, and those that have some technological experience, some that does. So you really have a lot of peoples of publics, I would say, in communication. And you have to tailor your communication for the public you want to reach. Then, if your communication goes out of that kind of bubble, communication, that's interesting. It's a case study of communication, and usually that means something. Because if you're talking, I don't know, to the taxi drivers, of course, the train drivers will get angry about what you're saying. Because they have different issues, different problems, different routines, different incomes. And that's why you really have to tailor your message. The social media is actually an incredibly powerful tool to do that. Because it really brings everybody in like a public square. We are in a room that is called Agora, which is the ancient public square of the city-states of Greece, where democracy was formed, Agora. The social media is a huge square, public square, that kind of segregates itself into small groups that find themselves comfortable by sharing between each other their mutual agreements, understanding, and opinion, and then doesn't feel okay by talking with other groups, and that is where a mechanic comes into force, into effect, which is very old, and it is the tribal nature of our society. We were meant to live, evolve in small tribes, almost like enlarged families. We all have the same problems, the same thinking, the same language, the same religion, the same. So we really do, as humans, we're not rational, we really do try to make homogeneous groups about some things that if you find someone that thinks like you want to think and speak, you immediately agree with things and you make a closed community from that. Social media exposes you more on other communities than our offline community has ever done. Because if you wanted to be exposed to something different from what your village was thinking, you had to go to another village. Very, 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 very few people managed to do that, apart from cities, which were cultural melting pots throughout the human history. But social media really allows you to know what they're thinking in the village next door without no effort whatsoever. And this has brought up all the problems of miscommunication, mistranslation, and things like that. And then I marked down something while we were discussing about these things, about the glossary, Anthropocene. That is a very interesting word we used many times into our communication, but like eco-anxiety, it's not official. It's not something that has a scientific definition and so a scientific scope of use. There was recently a convention of the International Geographical Chart Society, I think it's called, if I remember correctly, on that. They refuse the recognition of Anthropocene as a specific separate geological epoch because it's too short and the markers with the image are too debated. But that does not mean that we cannot use it as a communication tool about assessing and referring to the effects of humans.
And also to let the people escape from their own responsibility.
Absolutely. So we are still in the Holocene as a geological epoch, because if we let planet and nature do what they want to do, we are still in the Holocene. Nothing has changed. Apart from the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. But nevertheless, nature will do what nature wants to do. The point is that Anthropocene is a bucket word in which we can put all of what we mean by the human interference, we could say, on the natural environment. And that could go from all the pollution that we've done to the world, and still, what is pollution? What do you mean by pollution? CO2. Sometimes I see this reaction in our comments. Here I'm bringing my experience with me. Many times in the comments, they say, oh, CO2 is an essential gas for plants, for utilities. So you cannot treat it as a pollutant gas or as a pollution gas because it's actually useful for the environment. Here's a reply. If I close you in a sealed room with 1,000 ppm of CO2, let's see how long it lasts. Because after 16 hours, there is death. By your own breath, you're breathing out this gas that to you is poisonous. Plants is not. What do you mean by pollution? 2 minutes? Perfect. That's what we should expect. I was going to ask how much time you had. CO2, what is a pollutant? What is pollution? If we say it's something that is bad for this thing, that is too much circumstance here. We are saying it's pollution, it's polluted for it, but maybe we should use toxic as an English term, or poisonous, venomous. I don't remember the difference. One bites you, one the other bite you. Poisons and venomous, the difference. But pollution is something that alters an equilibrium that otherwise would not change. In that same sense, CO2 right now is a pollutant because it's altering the composition. And it is changing how the planet behaves in a way that makes it more hostile to us. In that sense, CO2 is a pollutant, whereas arsenic. Arsenic is a metal, it's purely natural. Nobody made arsenic, nobody got arsenic out of the ground. But if your groundwater comes out of a layer that has arsenic in it, the groundwater will have arsenic in it. And this is a huge problem in Bangladesh. Nobody puts arsenic into their drinking water. It's just that the nature of the place is that. So that is a pollutant. It's natural, it's proposenic, topogenic. And that's where the communication really comes in. You have to know what you're talking about. So, want to do communication, unfortunately, read lots about what you are. Okay? Be precise with your words and be very clear in your mind to whom you are talking and what points you're trying to get across. In our page, on our project, we talk lots of times, we have talked a lot about the recent extreme weather events that have struck Spain, Italy, Greece, France, Germany, all of Europe, and their connection with climate change, which is not immediate, and it's very hard to make, because another point, this is specifically connected to climate change, to communication, is the difference between weather and climate. Because people will tell you floods have always happened. Fires, forest fires have always happened. Yes, that's when we have to remember. Yes, this has always happened. But how much was happening in the past? And how often is it happening now? Can we tie this to the climate change? Is there a physical connection? Remember, correlation is not causation. If we find a correlation, is there a causation that explains that? And this last point that I want to bring across is very important, the communication model we have in your mind. There are two communication models, mainly outside, and they are very, very nicely called push and pass. Push is the public understanding of science. I am the expert, you are student. I am full, you are empty. I will fill your head with all of what you know, and thanks to this fact, you will become knowledgeable on the issue and you will behave and vote. This has been proven not to work. It has never worked. It will never work. It works only in an academic context when people come with expectations of learning from it. So, like I think maybe why you are here today, in parts. You want to learn, so I can give you something. But in social conversation, the model that must be used is the best, beautiful, which is the public engagement in science. You do not have to make the other understand. Stand there, I don't know. I will explain it to you. There's also a entire branch for the mansplaining, when the men explain to women because they're stupid, they're in fear, things like that. No. People, your public must be engaged in conversation. What do you think? Why do you think that? Where are your sources? My sources are this. Can we compare? Can we have a conversation, not just bringing up communication walls? I'm superior, you're inferior. That's the main point I wanted to bring up.
So you are feeling that you are sharing.
You are sharing, because sharing is scary.
Connecting your knowledge.
Absolutely, absolutely. But this is difficult because it's extremely time consuming. It needs you to
react anytime
to actually try to understand who you are in front of you and try to speak to you. In this psychology thing is
it's
engaging
also for you for a communicator.
Yes.
Okay.
So, that's my
Thank you very much.
Oh, the speaker is a journalist, a colleague of mine, Nicolas Lutito. Please join us at the table. Nicolas he's an environmental journalist at La Stampa. He's the author of the weekly newsletter Il Verde on the climate crisis, and he has authored several podcasts on sustainability. He teaches at the Scuola Olden here in Turin and the master's program in journalism at Lewis University in Rome.
Thank you, Marco. So, hello everyone. Sorry for my rusty English. You will hear my a bit rusty English. I'm Nicholas, as Marco said. I'm a journalist. I work at La Stampa. La Stampa is a daily newspaper based in Turin. It's the third main newspaper in Italy. And I'm the author of this newsletter, started in 2020. Colore Verde means the green color, because I write about environment, climate, sustainability, and I'm a teacher in different schools and masters. I'm gonna show you something about journalism and newspaper. If you want the slides, you can have it just with the link or with the QR code. I'm gonna wait a few seconds. But also at the end, maybe I can show you again if you like the slides. Okay, this is my when I thought about this meeting with you. I thought about my first article about climate change in our newspaper on La Stampa. It was 2016. Tomorrow is the anniversary of this article. The title was "Does climate change really exist?" Why this title? Maybe you can think I was a climate denier or something like that. But this was the most common expression search on Google Italy about climate change. If you type climate change, the sentence ended with "that really exists." So we try to get more audience by doing the title accordingly to the search engine optimization. So this is what was my first article. It was an article about fact-checking. It was a fact-checking article about data and temperature and greenhouse gas. Everything's changed since then. A lot changed. Maybe at the time there was a binary vision of climate change. Those in favor, the climate scientists, the experts, and those against it. Like it was, do you support Juventus or not? Do you support climate change or not? Do you believe in climate change, like was Santa Claus? At the time, everything changed, as I said. Maybe it changed when we started to end this approach. The journalist approach in every story is to hear the other bell, sentire l'altra campana in Italian. We said in English is to hear the other side of the story, of the tale. At the beginning, when you do a political article, a political news reporting, you should ask what the left side of the politics think about this topic, and you have to listen the other side, so the right political side. In climate, everything is different, obviously. We know that today, but at the time that was the approach for climate change. When I had to write an article in the past about climate change, I had to ask to the climate scientists some questions and then go to find someone that doesn't think the same thing and think the opposite. So in the past we had in the newspaper a lot of articles about interviews maybe with climate deniers. Nowadays it's very different. Everything's changed, I think, around 2019, when we had this big movement of young people that in the streets with Fights for Future, Greta Thunberg, brought the topic in the news, brought the topic in our daily conversation, and we changed our approach from skepticism to engagement, to awareness. But I think after the COVID-19, everything changed again, and nowadays we are in a more this is difficult for me, polarization, difficult also in Italian for me, polarizzazione, in a polarization environment, because every time we see something about climate, as you said before, there's a lot of fighting, a lot of, okay, you think that, I think the other way. Not because we don't have the proof of climate change like in 2016, but because it's a political, sociological topic now, and everyone wants to have their own opinion. And they feel entitled of their opinion. So we can see in the newspaper, a lot of newspaper, like for example, this is our Stampa, this is for the birthday on 22 of April. We did this big cover front page with Generazione Pianeta means the planet generation, and we tell the story of many people that are doing something for the environment. But at the same time, a lot of newspaper, this is Libero, it's a right-wing political newspaper that doesn't think that climate change is a real topic. So this is the title is global warming, why it's possible if it's cold outside. So they are spreading today's climate disinformation, okay? Why is that? Not because they don't think climate is not existing or climate change is not existing, but because they are ideological, political, psychological reasons that they want to share and try maybe, I think, to find a way to get to climate procrastination. So government, in this moment in Italy, we have a right-wing government, can wait to take climate actions. So nowadays we are in this polarized version of the debate with a lot of climate polarization and a lot of climate procrastination, another difficult word for me in Italian and in English. The persistent of procrastination, this is for me a polilingua. I don't know if it's in Italian, in English, how it's polilingua, but
Tongue twister.
second.
Tongue twister.
Tongue twister. The persistent of procrastination for me is a tongue twister. How we at La Stampa created awareness and high quality climate journalism in the last few years. We have 5 pillars. I think there are 5. I hope there are 5. First thing, science. Always listen to the science. Obviously, you have to do the checking. Everything should be upscale, so everything should have a proportion. You cannot say that some solutions are better than other without the numbers. Always explain the cause of climate change, so the use of fossil fuel, and try to distill information from the good sources. We don't have to use the same language as science, because we are a newspaper, very pro-public, so we have to find ways. Maltempo is not a good word, bad weather is not a good word for a climate scientist, but maybe we can use it with the right article and the right words near the word maltempo. So sometimes we have to take shortcuts. with Italian and with the language. But it's important to always stay in the science. It's not enough. Science is not enough because we are journalists and we are not scientists. So I think we should add to this another pillar, human-based journalism. So personal stories, relatable stories, stories near us. For example, the floods in Emilia-Romagna, the floods in Valencia are relatable for us because they are near our houses. And to find the psychological aspects like eco-anxiety and so on. But it's not enough. Science and human-based journalism is not enough. This is Decalogo contro le ansie, an article I wrote last year, 10 ways to cope with eco-anxiety. It was a very shared article on the internet the day after when we published also in the internet, because a lot of people find it very useful. But also it was very criticized from the newspaper, as I cited before, Libero. They made an article saying, La Stampa is talking about eco-anxiety, and eco-anxiety doesn't exist. So we have this polarized version of the news. Maybe it's 3.3 because we were at 2. So point 3 is it's important multidisciplinary approach. What does it mean? Climate journalism cannot go along by himself. It should have also economics, sociology aspects, politics. We have to show the cost of climate inaction. We have to show the benefit of climate actions. Also the benefit, economical benefit. We have to take a lot of aspects in our article, in our newspaper every day. And the fourth point is to find a way to adapt our tone of voice. Sometimes we have to do just the scientific article. The newspaper should be very clear about the science. Sometimes it can be, I can be angry, or maybe optimistic, or maybe pessimistic. I can use my tone of voice and use it in different platforms, as Lorenzo said before. In social network, we have to be very careful which social network we choose to drive some of our article. And we can also have non-neutral opinions because, again, we are not scientists, we are journalists, and we have to take also opinions with us, but also scientists have opinions. So it's good to have opinions. I don't know if it's a 5th point. Okay, no, it was 4 points. But we have a 5th point, what we should do better. I think nowadays, what we should do better at La Stampa and in a newspaper, to be clear about what pays us. And for example, we have a big problem nowadays with newspaper because we cover a lot of climate change, but we have difficulties to remove the ads from fossil fuel economies and companies. This is
If you remember the famous first page of Corriere della Sera a few years ago, it was green first page with 2 green lions, upright and up left. It was friendly.
Yeah, in our newspaper, we have the same problem. We have a lot of good journalism, but our company still accepts fossil fuel advertisement. The Guardian in England, for example, decided to not having more fossil fuel ads. Another newspaper in Italy that refused advertisement for from fossil fuel companies is Domani, Editoriale, and it's one of the few that does this. I'm gonna show you a sort of ranking. A sort of ranking. It shows how, made by Greenpeace, how the climate crisis is covered by the major Italian media. At the starting of this ranking, we were almost last at La Stampa, you see, because we discussed very little about climate crisis. Nowadays, we started to improve. Now we are second, but we have the problem of the purple newspaper that is avoiding too much space to advertisement from polluting companies. So nowadays What we are lacking is this, and the transparency to say which companies pay us advertisement. Okay, so we are improving, but still there's a lot of things to do. How to cope with catastrophic journalism, how to balance bad news, good news. My solution is solution journalism, not good optimistic journalism, but solution journalism. Try to identify the root causes of a social problem, of a climate problem, and highlight a response of the responses, balance every number of the responses, present evidence of the impact of this response, and explain how and why the response is working. It's important not to focus just on the hope side. Oh wow, we can do it better. I am optimistic, but also to what we are doing right now. So solution journalism is a thing that in Italy we do not discuss much, but I think it's a way. Try to find solution, try to balance solution in our article. It's a privilege for a journalist. I think a journalist that cover these topics is like the people from Apollo 8 in 1968 when they took the first picture of the planet from space. This is the moon. This is our planet Earth. And for them, it was a privilege. They were pioneers. Space pioneers. I think journalists nowadays are time pioneers. They can see in the future and they can tell the people, watch out, something is happening, watch out, we can do it better. That's it, I think. Thank you. Thank
you, Nicholas. I definitely agree with you. Going back to what you said about, the denials. I think as journalists must not give any chance, any room, any invitation to denials in our, newsrooms, in our TV programs, or when we write our articles, because there is not another side of the thing about climate. It's just one side. So we must be convinced ourselves about this. So the next speaker is Maria Teresa Salvati. Please join us, Maria Teresa. She's founder and director of Everything is Connected, which is a transdisciplinary platform aimed at creating new communication paradigms, translated into activists, initiatives, and leading labs to raise awareness about the environmental and ecological crisis, giving centrality to public spaces, schools, digital channels, and co-design processes. She's a special lecturer at the University of the Arts of London within the MA in Photojournalism and Documentary Photography, with a course on visualizing the environmental emergency, and a lot of things more. She's going to present us a specific project she worked on a lot, along with University of Bari, possibly other partners. So the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for the speakers for a lot of insights, very useful for what we all should be doing in the future. So the emozionale ambientale, which is a made-up word, which can be translated as environmental emotionally, is a project that we are presenting the first prototype, and we are producing it in Puglia. Is financed by Regione Puglia, and we are working with the University of Valle to create this first prototype, which I will be talking to you about. So the premise for the conception of this project were these ones I will talk to you about. So in the presentation that Marco did before, there was in the last 5-6 years I've been collaborating with the University in London, and we've done a lot of research into how the climate change has been communicated not only visually but also in terms of journalism, and we realized that there was a lot of difficulties in people understanding what their action can affect the climate change. So in a way, it's very difficult to demonstrate the consequences of the actions in good or bad. I mean, we can talk about it and we use science a lot, And as everyone was saying before, people are not rational creatures, so science is not enough to convince people that there is a problem. So obviously we have to tap into the emotional sphere in order to go deeper and understand in which ways people can act and be perceived into acting. We also know that there is a need for a cultural shift, which when we talk about the ecological transition, we have to pass by a cultural transition, and people need to be involved on a mass scale in order to see an impact, a change. And we lost the connection between human and nature, which is another problem. We keep talking about we have to save the planet. No, we are not saving the planet. We are thinking we probably, if we are lucky, we will be able to save ourselves, but the planet would be actually even better without us. And then there's this theme, which I apologize for using eco-anxiety, but we've been using this word in the last years as one of the major driver in a way for young people to act or not in terms of acting and doing some leading people into some behavioral change. So these were the premises whereby the emotional, the environmental emotionally was born. So this is, in all effect, is a dictionary that has an emotional guide. Our objective is to change the narration of climate change and move people from fear, anxiety into hope and into a narrative that really helps people to activate a behavioral change. So we want to channel this anxiety into action, and we believe that if we tell people that their actions are measurable and they can be like physically seen, because you can use science to show people that your action, your community leads into some measurable results, then people are more inclined to do something. And the emotional environmental niente, lo dico in italiano. L'emozione ambientale we're working on, I'll tell you where we are at the moment, will be a dictionary made of words, visual representation, participation, and scientific measurement. I know it sounds very ambitious, but we really want to open the path into creating collective consciousness. So if we can show people that individual actions can lead to collective improvement, then probably people are more inclined to do something. The structure of the environmental emotionally is the following. We start from fear, and we have chosen 30 keywords. I'll show to you which ones are they, which is basically starting from individual consciousness, and it's made of graphics and text. We involve people. Actually, the first prototype is based on secondary schools in Puglia. So we have targeted students aged 11-14. And that would be a way to connect to this field. So we use creativity, contemporary art as a way to involve people, the students, on an emotional level. And the turning point is where we try to instill hope is by giving solutions, scientific measurement of the action of these people, obviously relevant for the target we are working with this first prototype, and it will be especially data visualization. This is the prototype and the way it will be developed. So we have created a transdisciplinary think tank. I profoundly believe in the transdisciplinarity. I think there is no single discipline at the moment that is able to give any answer that could really lead to some changes. So our team is based on, of course, science, but also there is social innovation, communication, art, and the role of this think tank is that of drafting these 30 keywords, and then also to find solutions and to do projections of the solution, which are the measurement of these actions. There will be a call to action for all the schools in the region of Puglia to activate the participation, and whereby the students will visualize the 30 keywords. And in terms of dreams, because I live in a world of dreams, each keywords I would love to be translated into living labs where people can actually learn how to live a different world in a way. How can we really implement a new model for living? We have activated, but we haven't finished the first creative lab on the keyword waste, which I will tell you a little bit more later. So the 30 keywords are the following. Obviously, we know that it's not exhaustive, and obviously the list can be a lot longer, but also it's true that a lot of these keywords are interconnected with each other, which is what we want also the kids and the students to understand. There is always a connection between things. And the co-creation participation will be done by this call to action that will be launched probably at the beginning of 2025, which will be the availability on the website of the Regione Puglia, where the schools can download the guide. They can see, they can choose the keywords that they like, and they can work creatively on visualizing these keywords, which can be, you know, a drawing, a poetry, a text, a photograph, an illustration, whatever they feel they want to visualize it. And then the best artwork will be selected to be inserted in the first prototype of the environmental emotionally. I would like to share with you a simulation, an example of how each keywords will be treated. And will be text, as we said. The starting point is text and graphics. I'll tell you shortly about the visual identity we've developed on it. This is the co-creation and participation. So this is one example of a kid illustrating, like doing this drawing on the keyword emission. And that will be the text you see, will be the explanation why the kid has thought about that kind of drawing. And the turning point is mostly based on data visualization. So we can tell kids that what happens if you go to school by using sustainable mobility. And so we can show them that actually in a range of 3 years or 5 years, you can see the difference in terms of reducing CO2 or other pollutants if you actually use a car. Don't use the car. This is one example, of course, because we are still working on the solution for each keyword, and each one will be visualized and measurable, so people can actually see. Actually, if I do something, I can measure what they do. And the first creative lab, which is on the keyword waste, we have started but haven't finished yet. Has been done on of course, conceived with having the design thinking methodology in mind. So we worked with kids on how to change the perception of waste and move from pollution, lack of respect for nature, into resource care and precious resources. So we used the method game of Binocchi Fantastici. I don't know if anyone knows it, but it can be translated as a fantastic combination by Giovanni Rodari. It's a way to help kids to use their imagination, creativity, and critical thinking to.
For the strangers that are with us today, we can say Rodari was a very, how I can define him, prominent visual storyteller, possibly. So design, yeah.
Yeah, so this method consists of highlighting a problem and then working with the creativities to create some cards that seemingly are unrelated to the problem. So they take some cards they seem like a casual. So by doing this association between cards that don't seem to be connected, the kids have to create a story, a narration, and this becomes a narration that then can be used in many ways. In this case, the kids were directed into creating this inspiring campaign. It would be translated into an awareness campaign for adults to inspire them to reduce waste, recycle, reuse pretty much everything. The visual identity is the following. Can we start the video? So as you can see, well, I would like the designer that invented this concept is here. She's Ludovica Menegella. She's in the public, and it's about reflecting on the fact that if we see on the microscope all the cells belonging to every different type of living beings, we can see that they're all very similar. So to emphasize this concept that we are nature, we decided to use this concept. And of course, also this visual identity emphasizes the fact that it's scientific based. The project is totally scientifically based. And so also the lettering is a playing with our icons that represent the disciplines that have been working together in order to conceive this project, which is education, social innovation, science, and visual art. And this is one quote that I really believe it to one of the most fun things you can do today is to instill hope. When we work with schools these days, you realize that the kids are truly concerned, and you feel like we have a responsibility to find some answers in order to instill hope. I think also fear can bring people to take action, but it's a decision. We decided to that hope is much better for the future. Thank you.
Now we have 10 minutes of break, but before that, Mr. Piras will give you a quick communication, and we are going to take a picture with all speakers. So I want you to take over the wife. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Then we close the first part, and then we have take a very short coffee break. I would like also just to say thank you very much for the FAI, for the National Trust in Italy, because the FAI support and also have promoted this seminar today, and we have also the very honor to host today the deputy of this association, and thanks a lot, Maurizio. And also there is a stand of the FAI close to the coffee break corner. Then please, I invite you to visit the stand with the member of the FAI, and so thank you again for the FAI for your support. It is very, very important to helping you today. So then there is the coffee break.
We will start again in 10 minutes.
Okay. The part of this seminar, and at the end we have the round table where maybe we can have the opportunity to do some question, and we close with the talk about the deputy of the FAI association. So I leave the floor to Marco for introduce the other speaker.
Thank you, Marco. So welcome again. So the next speaker is Ginevra Zolli. Ginevra, please join us here. Ginevra founded Greencam, that is a media community of over 140,000 people. Wow. As a content creator and a community manager, she uses creativity to connect people and strengthen a community of individuals that are conscious and passionate about sustainability. Using a proactive communication approach, she works to make climate change issues and solutions accessible to all, engaging and connecting more and more people every day. The goal is to encourage every single person to limit their impact on the planet, as only together we can overcome climate challenges. So.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. I'm Ginevra, and yes, I'm one of the co-founder of Greencam. We are three, and we like to describe our reality as a community that can change the world, not just the climate. Greencam was founded to tell stories, to share solutions, and spread the green news that raise awareness and to inspire a positive change. With engagement activities and communication support, we collaborate with companies, institutions, NGOs to drive meaningful eco-sustainable actions. But how did green come to be? We were studying economics and environmental policy here in Turin, and Simone, Duccio, and I frequently encountered friends, people, even classmates that feel completely overwhelmed by the climate crisis. And a lot of them wanted to help but felt stuck because the problem seems too big to address it individually. And honestly, I felt that too. But also, I think I'm not the only one in this room. And so these feelings are part of what inspired us to create Greencam. We started to looking around in the world of media, influencers, science communicators, and journalists. And we noticed like a trend. Much of the climate conversation out there was deeply pessimistic, often catastrophic. Not that the situation is serious, obviously, but I understand that this tone has its benefits. It wakes people up, drives the urgency, but it comes with a side effect, the famous eco-anxiety, and we couldn't ignore that. So we ask ourselves, can we create something different, something complementary, an approach that doesn't shy away the facts, but also doesn't leave people feeling defeated. So that's it. That's how Greencam came to life with a mission to use communication as a tool to inspire people to take actions. Oh, sorry. Okay. Let's face it, today's media environment on these issues can feel overwhelmed, and studies show how over 70% of young people experience eco-anxiety, and I think that many of the headlines that we read, even if they are saying the truth, often they just fuels this anxiety. And an interesting question probably is what are how the young people take this information, where they read the news, and the
Which sources?
Yes, which sources? Thank you. And social media is one of that. In Italy, in last year, the 43.7% of people under 30s says that they rely to social media to take news, and also it's is increasing because overall Italian population consider the social media like a reliable source. But if we're looking like in the big picture, the trust in information is still low. Only the 34% of Italians says that they trust the news they consume. So all this data says that there is a lot of work to do in this field, and especially for who like Greencam that communicates on social media. We use social media to inform, engage people, and according to us, it's a unique opportunity because we can reach and support this part of population that experiences the most the eco-anxiety. Oh. Okay, so we need to break to the noise, to the misinformation, to the sensational headlines, to provide content that are both accurate but also inspiring. So it's critical that we as communicators prioritize fact-based and balanced storytelling, and in particular, what that means for economic, for environmental and climate. Okay, and climate. It's the computer. And so we think that we have a responsibility to share not only the hard truths, but also stories of open resilience, because according to us, if people see only negative messages, they are not inspired to take actions, but probably the reaction is eco-paralysis and eco-anxiety. At Greencam, we used to search to find a balance in the news that we communicate. And our philosophy is simple: is if people feel empowered, they are more likely to act. And how we do that? One of our main format is weekly carousel named Eco Anxiety. Here are 5 good news for you. Every week we search for the 5 best news, positive and proactive news, and is our way to say yes, there is a problem, but there are also a lot of people, organization, and governments that are doing an amazing work to the word that there is in my mind is fight, but I don't want to use it.
Tackle
the climate crisis, and we have also we show also innovation, and we tell story of change makers. Change makers are the individual that are making difference in their communities, and another approach that we use is to explain a problem, and in the same post try to give some solutions. The main idea of our project is to show that each solutions is like a piece of larger puzzle, and together we can create something that have a meaningful impact. And you might ask if that's this approach work, and we fortunately we have a lot of we receive a lot of feedback from our community, and here there are 2 examples. This summer, a girl write in our DMs, worried because she thought that we stopped to publish the format that I presented before.
for the summer rest or what?
Yeah, we decided to take a break and public the
Vacation.
yes, only on 2 weeks.
Okay.
Normally it's 1 a week,
Okay.
so we explained to her this, and she was really kind and explained to us that this format is give to her a really positive energy and help her to diciamo, overcome her eco-anxiety. Another example is a comment under our post where another girl decided to tell her experience, and decided to give some advice to the other people that feel also eco-anxiety. And this comment in particular is really important for us because it's a proof that we create a safe space where people are confident and free to express themselves and to support each other. Another example are comments under our reel. This is really embarrassing for me, but okay. This is I selected two of the comments. One says, "I adore you. When I see you, I already know it will be good news." And the other is, "You are a source of good news and hope. Thank you." There are really a lot of people that thanks us for giving good and constructive news. It's there are also a lot of
You probably know the difference between good and constructive news are.
yes,
a bit-
it's different because
yeah,
we
very
have
different.
two different formats of reel. So we have
The good news is the cat was saved by
Yes.
from the tree, no,
Yeah.
typically, and constructive news is a solution.
Exactly. We focus on like innovation or new ecological urbanization. So we show something that is concrete. Concrete is maybe cemento. Mhm.
Real.
Real. And that's also good news because to reach our mission is to reach more people, and to reach people that are not really interested in these topics.
And sensible.
Yes, sensible. Often we have to do also content that are a little bit meno serie. Come si dice?
Very easy, more popular.
Exactly. We are not influencer, but we have to balance this type of content in our work.
Let me add that popularizing, it's a good word. We translate it in Italian as popolarizzare, which
Sì,
means
yes.
something like banalizzare. But in English, popularizing science means making divulgation. So take the science and put at disposal of everyone. So that's a good word.
Yeah. So I think I already say that we obviously doesn't think that the climate crisis isn't urgent, but we pay a lot of attention in the way we present it to our community. And here there is an example, real fit in the conversation of today. Now imagine to have 15 years old and to have to explain to your parents that you are struggling with eco-anxiety. As to say, when I was 18, I have a lot of problem, and I was scared to tell my mother that I have the standard anxiety. We know that mental health not always was considered and relevant, but this is a little example where that say that the things are changing, the people are changing, and we received an email from a mother that asked us some advice for her daughter, and it's the first time that
Was she scared or what?
yeah, she was scared. She didn't know how to help her daughter, so we answered to her like okay, we are maybe not the right person to ask this, but we advise like to take
Suggested her to go to a physician, possibly
yeah,
psychologist. Or
yes, and also to maybe join like some group of environmental activism.
Okay.
That is maybe a good way to talk and know people that are in your same situation. And she thanks us nothing. And I think talking about these feelings, how we are doing today, and understanding how each of us working in this field can contribute is the first step to really learn how to deal with this strong emotion that the climate crisis generates in all of us. And I want to conclude impossible, sorry, with these phrases. I think that we have to take the dance sometimes overwhelming data on climate change and make it not only understandable but actionable.
That's a good statement to close your presentation. So thank you very much, Ginevra, for your nice presentation. And we go straight to the next speaker, who is Alessia Conti. Please join us, Alessia. She's president of the Italian National Council of University Students, and she has attended a few days ago an important meeting which took place here in Politecnico of Turin. The name of the meeting was Youth for Climate. So really interesting. So the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the organization of this event for the opportunity to discuss about this topic with you today. Yes, I am the head of the National Council of University Students, which is like the most important body of representation for students in Italy. Yes, we are a consultative body for the Ministry of University. So we do not have any lessons to teach you about communications and eco-anxiety or ambientalism, but sustainability as well. But we are more on the receiving end of communications. So the work you are studying for. As students, we believe that this particular topic is one of the most important for our generation. So I will be giving you some views, some point of views from the generation I represent, which I believe is the same as yours. First of all, what I believe is that eco-anxiety sometimes is labeled as something new, something regarding our generation, which is also described often as lazy or ill sometimes. Well, it's actually, it's a theme that has been in the media for so long. I will give you some examples of that. Yeah, I will talk about pop culture since I'm young and I think it is suitable for us all. You should think about like movies representing mad scientists talk about climate, the climate crisis, the anxiety and the fears connected to it. But not all these movies or songs or pictures as well comes from this century. You should talk about Deserto Rosso, which is a movie, an Italian movie actually, coming from the 60s, where the main character explores the feelings of the problems connected to industrialization, for example, and its impact on the environment. Also Sabotage, which is a movie coming from France, but also Ozzy or Don't Look Up, which is maybe something that you have heard of.
You know that we communicators are speaking about Don't Look Up effect.
Yeah.
When we talk to the people, or possibly we talk to politicians, and they really seem not to understand what we are saying.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's what happens, and that's really connected, deeply connected to eco-anxiety. And I will be talking about that. But before, what I want to tell you is that it has been published a survey that it's actually the most important survey on mental health and students' mental health in Italy. Its name is Chiedimi come sto. I would advise you to look up for it because it was the most wide research on students in these past years. Something like 30,000 students answered to this survey. And basically, what comes up from that is that the 60% of students thinks as the future as critical, as catastrophic. 90% of them states that they need some kind of psychological support. So the anxiety and the fears of my generation are deeply connected to the social situation we're facing, the working situation, but also the climate crisis. We were talking about the special week that this week represents. The COP29 has started last week. I get chills today talking about this because I am well aware that most of the most important countries and country leaders will not attend the COP29. China will be the leading country of this COP. This COP is taking place in Azerbaijan, which is an old saying by that. So yes, the situation of today is impactful on our well-being. And what I feel, what we feel is important to address right now is the contrast between the idea of the future that it's often narrated as catastrophic, as a problem, also by the vocabulary. That's why I appreciated your focus before, because it is actually narrated, it is talked about as an upcoming war. We just talked about that. So there is a contrast between how climate crisis is talked about and what the governments and what the politicians do about it, which is nothing, which is not enough, if you will. So I believe eco-anxiety is a very simple response to this context. Of course, I'm gonna panic. Of course, I'm gonna get anxiety. Of course, the social answers to the inability, to the inertia of political action is gonna be panic. Or even worse, the medicalization of this anxiety can lead to the idea that eco-anxiety is a problem of a single person, of a group of people. It is not by giving medication to young people that we will be facing the real problem. So yes, of course, people need to have instruments to face their fears, to go through their anxiety. Specifically, they have a disorder of sorts, but the problem is not going to solve itself. Eco-anxiety is it has to be fight. It has to be fought. Maybe taking action on climate change, even requesting governments to take action. So when we ask ourselves, what can we do? Yeah, first of all, we should request and in some sort of ways accept only like a well-structured communication on this topic. Of course, media try to communicate, like maybe newspapers more than media in general need to communicate about it in a polarized way because they need money to keep going. Different source of information maybe do not, and they can get deeper on the subject matter. So I will not tell you to face your eco-anxiety or eco-anxiety in general, seeking for just scientific papers. Of course, that would not be suitable for everyone, but we should take more, give more interest to the one communicating in a proper way, which is not polarizing the subject matter, which is not giving the theme some sort of, word-related words and vocabulary and so on. So communication is key. It is key to fight against fake news and what you have labeled doomers. Yeah, it is something to do as well to fight against the idea that we cannot do anything. But I believe the first thing we should do to fight this eco-anxiety is to request a better behavior from institutions, from newspapers, from media, that they have the responsibility in all of that. And then, of course, the second thing, the main thing, is to ask for a political change, for a political interest of the institutions. Yes, a couple of weeks ago, I was here to talk about climate action and things we can do as universities, as countries, and so on. Well, the thing is, if governments do not fund this kind of initiatives, we can be here and talk about it for as long as we like. But we need money to take action, and that's the main thing we should ask for. So that's the direction where the National Council of University Students wants to go, and it wants to go there by also connecting and linking to people that can do this work efficiently, such as the people that have spoken before me. So thank you for your attention. That's it.
Thank you, Alessia, also to be so quick and rapid. Okay, so before the last round table and possibly question time, just to interact also with the public, because I'm quite sure you have a lot of questions to do to our speakers. I would like to invite at the table Maurizio Rivolta, who is the Vice President of FAI, Fondo per l'Ambiente Italiano. We asked to Maurizio to make a sort of reflection on landscape and eco-anxiety. So the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting us to this seminar. I think, let me congratulate Politecnico, because I think this is something innovative, because so far, talking about climate change, it is always organized on data, technical data, scientific data, but so far the approach was never oriented to the emotional approach. And I think this could be very important because probably it's a way to get in touch with the population in a more personal way, to make the question climate issue not only something which is far away from our life, but it's something which is changing our life daily. So very important that you have organized. This is something innovative. I think don't stop here. Let's try to carry on. We are fully available to cooperate together, because I think this is something new we should improve. Just a couple of words about FAI, Fondo per l'Ambiente Italiano, is a national trust, is a cultural foundation. We have 300,000 members in Italy and 72 properties, which are castles, villas, but also mountain sites or parks, where we try to explain the beauty of our country and the strength of the beauty, which will be part of the presentation I will try to propose you this afternoon. So, landscape, something new or something different to what you have listened so far this afternoon, because it could be something that might help to get a correct sensation of what is the climate change connected to all the environment we are living in. So we are the landscape. We are part of the landscape. Our action modify, change in good or bad sense what is surrounding us, what is around us. And the landscape, what we see every day, is something that can make our day bad or good, depending on what we see, what we feel when we see something. Don't worry, in my presentation, I won't have too many words. I will try to get your sense, your emotions, looking at pictures. We have different types of landscape. We have a natural landscape. We have a constructed landscape where the man has created this landscape in combination with the nature, with the lands. We have a modified landscape, so something which has been changed from the original condition. And we have a regenerated landscape, so something which was in a condition but has been regenerated, restored, reconstructed. Now I give you some views. We're talking about climate change. This is landscape, and this is one of the impacts that climate change have on the landscape. You see,
this is Sicily?
Well, this is no, I think this is Spain, but you can find this kind of situation everywhere, also in Italy. Sicily this year, but till a couple of years ago, or till last year, there was a lake not so far from here in the Valley of Ceresole, which was completely dry and has been completely dry for some months. So it was like in Sicily this year. But so this is a landscape conditioned by the climate change. The landscape might be changed by the climate change. Valencia, we know how these events, strong events, change what is around us. The landscape has been dramatically changed by these extreme events. You see a city where the profile of the town has been totally changed by one single event. So this means that the climate change might have an effect which is conditioning our life. You were talking about your friend in Bologna, and you understand it while you are involved in this. But consider that Valencia is not so far away from Turin. We're talking about a few hundred kilometers. So what happened in Valencia might happen in Torino, I don't know, next year, in the next 2 years. I don't want to be sarcastic.
Scientists used to call the whole Mediterranean basin as a hotspot of climate change.
Exactly.
So
we are in a
we all are in a risk.
Yeah, where the changes are faster than in other places. That's true. Other kind of landscape, industrial landscape, you see pollution, industrialization, infrastructures that change the landscape which is surrounding us. Deformation of the landscape. This is a very typical landscape you have here around Torino, getting from Chivasso to Torino. You have how many? 60 kilometers of this kind of non-ordered landscape, of this chaos, this urbanistic chaos, which is somehow conditioning our views, conditioning our life. Urban landscape decay. This is something which you can find everywhere around the world, sometimes more, sometimes less, but this is giving you a kind of decay, of an urban decay, changing your daily conditions. This urban decay is also changing the social approach of a society. This is Naples, where you have the condition of life in this landscape is conditioned by climate change, by many other factors, and in a way is creating this anxiety we have been talking the whole afternoon. Attitude to ugliness. This is a man's behavior. We are here in Rome, but we could be in Torino, we could be in Milano, we could be in any big town around Italy, but probably around the world, where the behavior of the humanity change the landscape and change the conditions that are surrounding us. So the ugliness, it's something which is changing our days.
Also our DNA.
More than
Ugliness is-
DNA is a culture, is a cultural issue, sorry, is a cultural issue. It means a wrong culture can bring to wrong behavior. It's not given by DNA. I don't think this is something natural. You are born with a bad DNA. You are born, we are born all the same.
Ugliness, it's changing also our DNA
Changing
in terms of, you know,
DNA.
trauma. In
That
terms
point of view,
yeah.
yeah, you are right. Then we have a concentration of impacts. You see shops, traffic, daily activity. What we call a modern city is in fact a city where the life quality is not so good anymore. So the concentration of impacts are concentrated in a town, for instance. The misuse of some earth resources. You see on one side the intensive agriculture, on the other side a normal agriculture. Both are agriculture, both are giving food, but look how different they have an impact on our emotions. Climate change. This is the change of the landscape given by the climate change. The three pictures are in Valle d'Aosta, not so far from here. Probably the last picture is 2018. Probably this year will be even worse. So how the climate change modified the landscape and modified
no more
our
existing. Lorenzo said it is no more existing.
Yeah.
So totally melted.
Actually, totally melted. So, but this is how the climate change changed the life which we are living and which is surrounding us. So now, so you probably don't feel so good after seeing these pictures. The anxiety is probably increased during these few pictures, but this was made on purpose because there is another side of the medal that we could look at. First of all, we need, many of the words have been used this afternoon in other presentation. We need to recognize, to understand what is happening. We need to preserve our landscape. We need to preserve our brain. We can restore, we can reorganize, we can regenerate, and we can consider biodiversity and sustainability as part of our life, vital part of our life. And now let's start changing our views, giving you some positive views. These are some of the 5 properties which are in nice places. We are in the south of Italy, near Capri, in Campania, near Naples. Wide views immediately give you a good reaction. Oh, I can breathe now. Wide views. We are in Sicily. Culture, history, and nature combined together give us a good sense, give us a good impression, a good emotion. Also a modified landscape, but modified in a good way. This is a residence, a luxury residence on the Lake of Como, where we combine the beauty of the landscape to the beauty of the art, of the architecture, of the construction. So the man that can combine the two good things and have a good landscape. Natural views. This is Villa Gregoriana in Lazio, near Rome, where the natural landscape is giving a strong impression to what you see, where we preserve this landscape because it's part of our culture, the use of water, and it's part of our days. Villa dei Vescovi, which is a combination of man's activity combined in a sustainable way with the landscape which was surrounding this. And this we're talking about the 18th century. We are not talking about nowadays. It means in the culture we can find some correct approach which gets to a balance. This word has been used, a balance, which is an important part. I will come again on this concept. the importance of the landscape for the human life. This is the Castello of Masino, which is also not so far from Torino. Look in the history where rich people were constructed their residence on the top of the hill with a wide view, with a long view. And people looking down, this is the terrace which is at the entrance of this castle. People were looking to a landscape which was giving a sense of peace, a sense of beauty. We can change in positive way. You are here, I think, if I'm not wrong, you are engineer, architects, economists, students. So you are the next leading class, and you have the opportunity to change the bad landscape we have seen and to regenerate in a positive way. You see here an industrial area which has been regenerated. And on the other side, this is the vertical forest in Milano, il Bosco Verticale, which has been famous all over the world as a good example of reorganizing a city with a view to a landscape and to sustainability. Regeneration and added value. This is a former market in Düsseldorf, in the center of the town, which have been restored, reorganized, and covered by 300,000 plants. This effect was a visual effect, but also a climate effect. Consider that in this area, the temperature, the average temperature has been decreased by 3 degrees, simply giving this extra element, this natural element inside the city. And the value of the houses around this has been increased by 15%. So something which is also making a positive economy. New technology, this is in Rotterdam, a new building made of wood. Wood is a regenerative component, sustainable, reusable, improving the landscape, improving the quality of life, improving and helping to fight, even if there is no fight, to face the climate change. Regenerative agriculture, not intensive, right? The opposite of the intensive agriculture we have seen before. So we draw a roadmap which has been discussed already this afternoon, from anxiety to reaction with a balance out of any ideology. It is not an ideology issue. It is really a concrete matter and can create a strength, because you and we are the change we want to see in the world. And if we can implement, support, promote all this, do not under-evaluate the strength of the beauty. The strength of the beauty might be a positive, proactive response to the ugliness, and probably a help in the mitigation and adaptation of the climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to Maurizio Rivolta for his inspiring presentation. And now ask to Alvise Mattozzi to join us. Alvise is an associate professor in sociology here at the Politecnico of Turin. So probably you just came from the class, but possibly, oh, so you have heard something about, okay, our discussion.
I could have class after.
All right. So before opening officially the final roundtable, I want to ask to Alvise, from his point of view as a sociologist, what is the idea that came in your mind just hearing all the contribution, and seeing all the presentation?
So, where should I speak here? Okay, thank you very much for inviting me here. I really enjoyed this discussion. So, as you, please, alla terza, per favore. Okay. Sì, okay, perfetto. So, as you can see, as Marco said, I was listening. And this is something that sociologists do, like many other social scientists, try to listen to people or to publics, as has been said, in order to understand how they dialogue, relate together, or clash or fight. And I was listening and I was trying to do something that actually an artificial intelligence would have done much better, which is a map of, let's say, today's discussion. Of course, I was doing that real time, and so, I mean, there are many problems, but I guess it can be helpful for our roundtable as a reminder of what we discussed. And so, I mean, if we, of course, there are some things that are connected and some things that are opposed, or I felt that they were somehow opposed, or they were somehow a sort of contradiction. So the first thing is that all our speakers somehow agreed on the overall framework. But at the same time, they didn't say exactly the same things. There were some differences, which I find quite interesting. For instance, if we start from the center, we see that, of course, Camilla Gamba started with talking about the disconnection between human and nature, whereas Maria Teresa Salvati said we are nature. And in the last talk by Maurizio Rivolta, he said we are landscape. So somehow, I mean, are these two things, are these different views, or they are just different way of considering the same thing? And then, of course, from there, I mean, who are these we? Who are these humans? So on the one hand, the entire panel was thought in terms of individuals, so the individual condition. But then somehow right away, we needed to broaden our picture and look at and talking about people, or better, as has been clarified, peoples or publics, and then also at institutions. For me, it was very interesting to hear Camilla Gamba discussing about the pros and cons of declaring climate anxiety as an illness, okay? And it's really an institutional issue, which is what science is. Science is, first of all, an institution, where, of course, debates are, like in any institution, is a political arena. And somehow what Camilla Gamba was saying about how to consider anxiety related to climate clearly was a political discussion related to science, which is something that we should always think about. So I'm not going to cross all the things. I wanted somehow to connect everything, as Maria Teresa Salvati said, that everything is connected, and somehow we could connect everything. I didn't do it because of time constraints, but we could do it. I just want to point to few things that somehow, first of all, to some words that maybe were missing, or I didn't hear, or maybe they were mentioned, but I didn't hear them. So of course, this is here as a proposal. Then we can correct and integrate what I was doing. The first one is, I mean, the first consideration is that somehow we are very good at defining others. So the deniers, the procrastinators, but who are we who are not deniers, not procrastinators? I didn't hear really, somehow we take it for granted. We are those on the right side. But how do we define ourselves? I put there in brackets concerned, okay? So we are concerned by the climate change, and by, but one thing that is probably those who are deniers, procrastinators, they are concerned too by other things, by other issues. And so one word that I didn't hear, even though when Lorenzo Colombo was speaking, it was implied somehow in what he was saying, when he was making the distinction between pest and puss, is listening. Somehow, I mean, it was implied, especially in Lorenzo, but also in other. But listening, in my opinion, is very important. And so I would suggest that also listening. I mean, what Lozito, Nicolas said about the other bell, the other tail. It's important to listen to the other bell, to the other tail, somehow to understand what people care about. Maybe it's not climate change. There are other things they care about. But in my opinion, as a sociologist, I can say that it's important to understand what people care about in order to be able to address what they care. That maybe apparently is not related with climate change, but then maybe it is. And then some suggestions. Two suggestions. First of all, are we sure we need to divide emotions and rationality, reasons and emotions or feelings? In our past, in 17th century, when people started to think about passions and not emotions, philosophers started to discuss about passions, they were always talking about the passion of knowledge. And so, meraviglia, now I don't have the word in English, curiosity, these are passion of knowledge. And I mean, I'm working with engineers in the Department of Environment, Territory and Infrastructure, and I see these engineers, they are very passionate about their work, and they're very passionate about their knowledge. So I don't think it's a good way to frame things, to really divide these two things. Of course, there are moments where we need to take a distance from things and somehow to compare. I was very interested by Maria Teresa Salvati that she said, oh, we need to address emotions. And then she said, we need to make things measurable. And somehow, I mean, we usually relate measure to rationality, and emotion is another thing. So, but there was actually, I mean, she was right, but it's just, so when sometimes we are engaged and then we have to take a distance, and comparison can only take place if we take a distance, and any measure is a comparison. And rationality, the very word ratio, it means, I mean, to compare things, to see the difference between things. Okay, so I would say that maybe we, instead of talking about emotion and rationality, we could say, talking about more engaged situation and more detached situation. And we need both. And then solutions and problems. I know that I'm touching a very delicate point for engineers who always talk about solutions. But probably, I mean, really, since things are very complicated, to talk about solutions is probably very likely to give false hopes. We talked about hopes today against fears, and you see them there. And also to talk about problems, because if you talk about problems, problem always requires a solution. Why don't we talk about issues? Issues that we care about, that we are concerned with, and we are concerned about. And we gather around these issues, and some people don't gather. So we are concerned by climate change. Some people are not concerned, they don't gather with us, but probably they gather around other issues, but maybe there are connections between these issues. And of course, we want to go on and to overcome these issues, and we need to articulate possible, I would not say solution, but possible articulation. So we need to change things, okay? And no, I just want to conclude with these two suggestions. So maybe getting over the problem-solution dichotomy and emotional reason dichotomy could be a way to somehow address, to better address climate change and all the issues we are concerned about.
Thank you. Thank you, Alvise. Thank you very much. Really inspiring your sketch and your map. We can keep it on the screen. Yeah. Yeah, we can keep it on the screen.
Yeah, I hope it's
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
terzo.
Okay. So now we have let's say 20 minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
To go. So first of all, I want to know if there is any question from the audience. So who wants to start with the first question? I'm sure you have a lot, so don't be shy. Huh? I want to open the discussion to the public. If someone has a question for us, for any of the speakers.
I stimulate the student of the master, please. Okay, please. Maybe a short introduction of yourself.
Hi, I am Andrea. I study nuclear engineering at Politecnico. And I'm curious. I don't know I don't know who to ask this, but a problem I face when I try to communicate climate crisis to people in general is that I always end up speaking with people that already know about climate crisis, that are, I would say in Italian, consapevoli. And I find it difficult to interact with the audience who is not informed. And I mean, what are the possible way to reach this type of public?
I think maybe Lorenzo or Ginevra could answer to this question, because this maybe half and half, because Lorenzo, you told about bubbles, no? Social bubbles.
Yeah, that is the question when you are talking about communication, because sorry if I don't turn around. Hello. Okay, I can do this. That's perfect. I can do this. So that's the question, because it's regarding the type of public you want to reach. So if you want to do communication for people that are already sensible to the problem and that are already knowledgeable, you talk about certain things. I think also the project of Ginevra kind of does that. So they are afraid of this, not the project as a whole, but the segment about the good news that we were talking about. You reach out to them and say, okay, I know you are angered, anxious about what's happening, but here is some elements to decide. When you want to reach people that do not have a conscience of the problem as their priority, that's very difficult, and that's where comes in place the listening. And the engagement, it wanted, but what I was meaning that, because that makes our question others. Because this decision, you know what's happening and you want to find strategies. If you want to reach out to people who don't care, you first have to learn what do they care about. And once you know why and what do they care about, you know how you could make climate change relevant to them. And that's the main issue. If I may add something, while we were discussing the final remarks, I thought about a thing that we'd never mentioned here, that there are many problems now that are talking to each other. Yeah. And we are talking about the climate crisis, the challenges that we face as society, as a world, and something. But there is something else going on right now, which is completely independent from the climate, which is, you could say, the demographic transition. So the Western world is facing a change, a fundamental change in the structure of the society, at the same time as we have to face a technological, economical, societal problem that is climate change. So there will be less and less workforce in the future because of the aging of the population. And that adds to the problem of the eco-anxiety. Eco-anxiety is not only climate change will destroy my house. Eco-anxiety, I cannot afford a car because my taxes will be very high, because on my shoulders I have to support all of the aging population. So that's another kind of problem. That's another face of the issue that we have to know. So when reaching to these other people, you have to understand what is their concern. Why do they read that, I will say, that garbage that is written on other newspapers, completely against what is common decency on communicating this kind of stuff, like apostrofare, I don't even know how to say that in English. It's like insulting all the people that believe in climate change, that are activists in climate change, with a direct insult, Gretini. You change the name Greta and you take it to cretin. So these cretins that believe in climate change, why do you say that? Why do you feel an antagonist to that? What is your issue? What is that makes you moving about this stuff? And that understanding, that kind of concern, is that what brings you attention and even votes. Because it's not that the stupid people vote for them and intelligent people vote for us. No, that's never the question. Because to their eyes, we are the stupid people that are voting for them, and they are the intelligent ones that are voting for the correct things, because they have different concerns, they have different issues. And that's the point. That's the entire point of democracy, politics, economics, sociology, communication.
Vote for Lorenzo.
No, please, no. I'm a terrible administrator. Don't do that.
So,
Okay, thank you, Lorenzo. So more questions from the audience? Anyone else? Okay.
Allora, I wanted to reply to this amazing map of keywords. It's amazing. So I think one of the reasons why everything is connected was born. It was because I lost my best friend because of cancer. And I realized that a lot of people at our age, a young age, were getting sick. They were getting like cancer at a young age, also dying. Also in the schools, a lot of kids were saying, why I have to change my way of living? Why I have to do sacrifices if I arrive at 30 years old, 50 years old, and then I get cancer and then I die? So the point was, why, this is a question also for journalists, why never, no one talks really about the real connection between climate change and human health? Sometimes it's talked about,
there
it's
is,
not
there
the
is
main.
a Lancet report. Lancet is a very renamed medical journal. It has released, I think yesterday or so, a big report, a huge report on this topic. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, but we know it for a long time. I mean, it's not just something that is Lancet is saying now. Like we know for sure, and this is science, like there are more people dying around the world for diseases related to health, to air pollution, than the whole people that have been associated with dying for COVID during the COVID time. But this has never been treated as an emergency. This changes completely the way people relate to climate change. So it's not the climate change. That's why I said we are nature. It's impossible to think of being healthy in an unhealthy planet. So if we continue talking about a topic that people feel unrelated, it's difficult to convince people. If you talk about human health, which is something that is really horizontal and everyone is concerned about, maybe things can change and can lead also into systemic change. Because if we don't change the system and the economy, then it's impossible to even have an effect on the climate and on the environment. So I think that we should start from the way we communicate to people, to talking in terms of like how to reach people. It depends how you talk to people, because if you talk about human health, everyone is concerned. Engagement, empowerment, and the language is very important as well. I think climate change is an old concept nowadays. We probably need to talk about like a health change, for example.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any? Okay. There's a question.
Please.
Okay.
Sorry, that's
After the guy.
Okay, that's please.
No, ho anche una domanda per te poi dopo. Okay, please.
I'm Sezai from Mechanical Engineer. My question is about, we are generally talk about climate change, but not mention so many about water crisis. As you know, as you know, there's a river known as Chenab between Pakistan and India. This river supplies water at least 500 million people.
Wow.
People. As the time passes.
What's the name of that?
Chenab.
Chenab.
Chenab. Yeah. Yes. Sorry. As the time passes, this river gets more dry and dry.
And possibly polluted as well, no? Full of things, full of.
Also, population has increased so much in 10 years, especially. Also, around river, there are many industrialization.
Right.
Also, there was a city in India, known as Chennai. In 20 years, its population increased from, if I remember correctly, from 3 million to 20 million. And 2019, Chennai city published as zero water day.
Okay.
There was no water in city. In city, that's why all markets, all offices are closed. Local people try to attack. Sorry. Local people, especially poor people, to try to attack rich people area.
Okay.
And rich people
against the poorest. But we'll go to the question. So what's the?
My question is about it is expected that in 15 years this Chenab river will dry and it will cause the modern migration.
Okay.
Probably at least 100 million people will migrate. Probably
the outlook is worse than 100 million. The most recent outlook of immigrants for climate issues is about 200 million, 200 and a half.
Can you repeat again, please?
The immigrants, the outlook for the future, for the next future, is that we are going to have more or less 250 millions of immigrants, due to the climate crisis impacts.
Yes. My question is, these people will migrate probably through the path of Turkey to Europe. What will it cause? What will it cause to Europe as society?
Okay, what will be the effect of this big immigration from the eastern part of, let's say Europe, to the western part of Europe?
Yes.
So who's going to answer to this? Who's going to answer to this big question? Maybe the sociologist.
Thank you for bringing up all these issues that somehow, as we were saying before, somehow you're trying to connect many things, and of course, so water with migration, with climate change, and what I could say about that is, first of all, that in our department we do take care water issues very, very seriously, and a big part of the department works on water, maybe not on that basin that you were talking about, but on other basin locally and internationally. But somehow, if I could summarize, I mean, the point that you were making is that we are all concerned. So, I mean, regardless where you live, we are all concerned by climate change, and somehow, I mean, sometimes in Europe we feel, or let's say in the global north, we feel safe because we have infrastructures, we have money, but in the end, everything will come because, as you said, these people somehow will arrive and will ask, will knock at our door. They're already doing rightfully, in my opinion, and asking, okay, but what about us? I mean, we are part of the issue too, and we are not the problem if we want to talk in terms of problem. So, but we are part of the issue, and so, I mean, this thing about, again, everything is connected. We are all in the same, let's say, boat, and in the same, and we should face it somehow together, even though it's difficult. I mean, as was said by Conti about the fact that there is COP29, but we are not there together.
You. So I think we have time just for the very last question. I myself want to make it, if you agree. I hope you agree. I'm a journalist. I need to make questions because otherwise it's a problem for me. Yeah, for Camilla. While eco-anxiety is not a diagnosis, as you said in your presentation, my question is, have you defined any certain pathology related to climate?
Micro-inspiration.
Maybe have I, but has there been a definition of pathology related
Yeah,
to climate?
I mean, you have someone that comes to you in order to, to make the analysis, to the psychoanalysis.
Yeah, so I would say that formally, if somebody needs a diagnosis, then I would.
Yeah.
And this is a recommendation.
Give
that
the name,
comes-
you labeled some pathologies that are strictly related to climate.
Yeah, so I might diagnose using a pre-existing diagnosis, for example, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Like the military that operates in war scenarios.
Exactly. So maybe if somebody has been involved in an extreme weather event and they come to me for support, I would diagnose it formally as PTSD if they meet the criteria. And then, of course, it would be climate related. Or they might come with panic attacks. That's a formal diagnosis. So I might say climate related. This is my own information that it's climate related, and then formally it would go under panic
And is this
disorder.
accepted by your community?
But this is the recommendation. So as we are receiving guidelines, the Italian Board of Psychologists, Mental Health Professionals has not issued guidelines as far as I know, but from, for example, the American Psychiatric Society, this would be the recommendation. If somebody meets the criteria for pre-existing diagnosis, for example, post-traumatic stress disorder, this is what we do. We follow the protocol for the treatment of that disorder. And then, of course, in our minds, we know that it's climate related or related to ecology. Something else that I think is important to acknowledge, if I can insert it, is grief. We talk a lot about anxiety. Anxiety is connected to the fear of the future, but we are currently dealing with grieving. So when we lose something loved, a grandparent, an animal, how do you say, ghiacciai? We were seeing the landscape, the glaciers. So the landscapes that we love, then we can experience grief. Okay, so I can write that. Depression, grief, climate related is something I keep in my own mind. I hope it's clear, Marco.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Very interesting. So I think, we are just in time. So maybe the last greetings from Professor Piras.
Perfect. So thank you very much. Then, first of all, thank you very much to all the speakers for this very interesting discussion. I think that we go back, Tom, with a lot of things for sharing with ourselves, first of all, and also for our friends. Second point is that so we have maybe, as Maurizio said before, we have maybe touching some very innovative points that is a little bit still not totally discussed, totally open in the community, totally also shared with the community. That is, I think, a good moment, this one, just to, it's a little bit a very small brick just to starting to talk about this. And thank you also for the very I think very innovative point of view that today you have sharing with us. The second point is I would like to thanks a lot the FAI for this cooperation, and I hope that we have in front of us a lot of future cooperation, even considering the agreement between FAI and Polito. That is a very absolutely positive point, even for fighting this eco-anxiety. And also embrace, absolutely. And so then also I thanks a lot all the participants, because I think that if you go back at home with just one new part is for me absolutely a good result, because when the people organize, we spend a lot of effort to organize this kind of seminar. We want that when you go back, you have just one new, a strong takeaway. Absolutely, this is what I want to say. Okay, so then after that, I invite you also, if you want, if you can, tomorrow morning there is also an interesting meeting and seminar about the communication and corporate
communication and maybe greenwashing issues.
Yeah.
So it will be really interesting.
Then, if you are not able to go here in presence, so also there is the streaming in YouTube, then I invite you to attending, to participate, to following this part. And also that's thank you again. And so have a nice evening. And so I would like just to have a
thank you all.